Hey guys, so we're now essentially 2 weeks into Legends Fest 2025 here. We just had the data download for Ultra UI Goku's Platinum equipment, kind of waiting for the daily reset to happen before we can jump in and test them out. And I just want to make this video because I think this is going to be a topic that we start to see more people talk about as, people start to see that this week also doesn't have a ton of content in it. So Legends Fest started on a Friday. This is now the second Wednesday after that. So we've had essentially, this is really the third week of Legends Fest when you think about it, because the first week of content is that first Friday. And the reason why is because the Wednesday prior to the start of Legends Fest kind of had no content in it because they dropped everything that would have dropped on Wednesday on Friday. So that was the first week of content. The second week of content was the week after that Wednesday, and then a week after that Wednesday is where we are right now. So we've essentially had 3 weeks of content for Legends Fest so far, and I gotta be honest, it doesn't feel that way. It does not feel like we've had 3 full weeks of content here for this, second biggest celebration of the year. So I'm going to talk a little bit about why I think that's the case, and also just kind of vent some frustrations that I've had with the celebration so far. So the first thing we could talk about is why, because when you look at the celebration objectively speaking, I actually don't think this part 1 has been that bad. I think people tend to overblow how, good or bad things are. People tend to exaggerate one way or the other. There's very infrequently, I would say, people who are like in the middle and kind of take an objective stance on, okay, the celebration has done some good things, but the celebration has also done some not so good things. I actually kind of tend to not see many people take like a reasonable stance when talking about things like this. It's either the worst thing of all time or the best thing of all time. Never usually is in the middle, okay? I actually think this is a very in the middle part 1. I would definitely say that this part 1, again, when you look at everything that they've dropped, objectively speaking, when you look at how they've done this part 1, I think is certainly, because I think last year's Legends Fest part 1 was really bad. I think this is easily better than part 1 of Legends Fest 2024, and I certainly think it's easily better than part 1 of Legends Fest 2022. It really comes down to 2022 versus 2024 in terms of which was the worst part 1. Unfortunately, I would say it's 2022 just because we only had one banner at that point. To be fair, that wasn't really a point in time where they were consistently doing 2 LFs to lead off these major celebrations. So in hindsight, it wasn't really that bad, but it felt really bad. Legends Fest 2022 was pretty bad up through right until the release of Gogeta Blue. Gogeta Blue dropped and it changed the entire kind of like perception of the celebration. But I would definitely call Legends Fest 2025 part 1 better than 2024 part 1 and 2022 part 1. So that kind of leaves in the middle, right? Because then you have 2021, which certainly was better. And then you have 2023, which, could you argue that Legends Fest 2023 was better than this? Yes. I think you could argue the other way around too. I think you could argue this is better than Legends Fest 2023 part 1. It's close. It is close. It's kind of in the same breath as that. And then Legends Fest 2020, I feel, is just, it's kind of hard to compare that with anything else because that was the first time we had like UI Sign Goku in the game. They introduced the unique age concept. That was the first character with the unique age in it. So I'm not really going to compare it to that. So I would really call this part 1 to kind of be in the middle with the other celebrations. So why is it so looked down upon, I would say, by most players so far, this part 1? I think what it really comes down to is when you just scroll through the Legends Fest news tab here that has all the information on all the campaigns, all the events, all the missions and banners, everything that dropped. When you really look at all this stuff, what is different between this year and the past 3 years? Almost nothing. There's pretty much no difference at all besides okay, we have an Ultra Bonanza now instead of a Mega Bonanza here. We have Shenron being brought back for Legends Fest, which is not something they've usually ever done. What else? We have this supporter thing. People definitely aren't high on the supporter concept overall. But there really isn't any big shakeup in the format for this celebration that would really excite people to get back into the game, because essentially if you played the game during any prior Legends Fest celebration, I would say pretty much since 2023, which is kind of when they started to become set in their ways of how they structure these major celebrations, there is nothing in this celebration so far that would really entice you to come back and get excited about the game again, besides just the characters themselves. I think Super Gogeta being a Synchro Gauge character really is the one redeeming factor of this, because obviously people have been waiting for the Synchro Gauge to return for a long time. This is the first Synchro Gauge character we've seen since the mechanic was introduced in part 1 of the 6th anniversary. Unfortunately, I don't think still, I mean, again, like two weeks later after this character dropped, I still don't think that Janemba is a part 1 worthy character for Legends Fest. I really actually do like, after using him and playing it, I actually really do like the design of this character. I think Janemba's design in terms of how he feels to use, I like the character a lot. I just, in terms of character, I don't think this should have been a part 1 unit. I think they probably should have just dropped like a Dragon Ball Super Broly here, or a Daima Super Saiyan 4 Mini Goku here. Something besides Janemba, even though it thematically obviously does work here. The other thing to mention is the fact that we only have 1% sparking for the entirety of this part 1. This Gotenks being on both Super Gogeta's banner and Janemba's banner definitely feels bad, and you could even exacerbate the issue when you start talking about supporters, right? We have Baba. I think Baba's on the Gogeta. Actually, I don't remember who's on which banner. Yeah, Baba's on the Gogeta banner, and then King Yama is on the Janemba banner. It really does feel like, because now we weren't really sure if this was the case back when supporters first dropped, because the first supporters we got in the game were on the purple GT Super Saiyan 3 Goku banner, who introduced, it was Dende and Yajirobe. And that Goku had no 1% sparking, and so people were like, okay, are supporters kind of taking the place of 1% sparkings? And then we had the 13 banner, which was actually a really good banner, because not only did it have a supporter and 13, but it also had a 1% sparking on it. So, and not only was it a 1% sparking, it was a tag 1% sparking, which, you know, typically tag characters, we know now, definitely take a lot more development time to create, because it's essentially 2 characters in one. So that 13 banner dropped, and we were a little bit more kind of, I guess, relieved of our worries, I guess, that supporters were kind of taking away from 1% sparkings. But now we're kind of back to this position where we have 2 supporters dropping at the same time, King Yama and Baba, and during a major celebration, Legends Fest Part 1, we have 1% sparking for both banners. That is bad. That is very, very bad. And this is, I guess, again, another area where people can look at this and, you know, I would say rightfully so, heavily criticize this decision to almost prioritize supporters over 1% sparking characters. I think every single person playing this game would rather we have 2 1% sparkings and 1 supporter over 2 supporters and 1% sparking. I just don't think very many people actually enjoy the supporter system that much. I think the supporter system will eventually become a pretty interesting part of the game, but we just need way more supporters in the game for that to be the case. And as of right now, I still don't like we need like 15 supporters in the game for it to become a little bit more interesting. But as it stands right now, I think they really, really, really need to be prioritizing actual characters over supporters. That is another area of part 1 that has kind of felt definitely a little bit lackluster for sure. But yeah, it's a combination, I think, of the format of the celebration and a lot of the events and campaigns going on just not changing year to year. Again, 2023 happened and they kind of felt like, okay, this is a format that we're comfortable in, or that we're comfortable with, and they kind of just stuck with that forever. They haven't really deviated too much from this one format we've seen for the past 2 years. So that's kind of felt kind of monotonous, right? And then again, Janemba being part of this part 1 lineup, on top of the fact that we only have 1% sparking here, I think all those things are contributing factors to why this kind of feels the way that it feels. And now we can kind of talk about some of the other things. This was a major problem during the anniversary, actually, and this is something I've talked about at length. When the anniversary ended and I kind of looked back at it and I was ranking, how does the 7th anniversary stack up compared to the other anniversaries we've had before, and what aspects of the anniversary hold it back from being as good as potentially some of the older anniversaries. Like 6th anniversary was held in the highest of high regards, I think, by most players. The 6th anniversary was just super, super good. Even the 5th anniversary, I think most people look back at that one and they're like, oh, the 5th anniversary will never be topped. Things like that. And the one area that I concluded as part of the 7th anniversary that just didn't really hold a candle to other past anniversaries were the off weeks. Lack of Zenkais, lack of unique equipments, lack of, whatever else content they could use to fill in these off weeks. Off weeks, aka being weeks that do not introduce new banners, new characters. So not weeks that had part 1 characters, part 2 characters, and part 3 characters. So any other weeks besides those. And I really do feel like that is a problem that we are seeing during Legends Fest right now, which is certainly disappointing because I felt that was a point that most players brought up as a huge weak aspect of the anniversary. I like the characters. Obviously, I think personally the dynamic area battle system was a huge benefit to the game. I think they really nailed that update. The way that they handle double ultras in the third part with them being kind of designed to be used together, definitely I don't think was the correct decision. But at least it was exciting. It was hype. The way that they revealed the characters was crazy. It's probably the best reveal ever. At least for me, it was definitely the best reveal ever. So the actual character drops, the way that they released them, I thought that was all good. But you can't just do the characters and then give us essentially just 2 weeks of barren wasteland. It doesn't work that way. Like that's not how a game like this is supposed to thrive. You need to have a steady flow of updates and events and campaigns and celebrations to keep the player base engaged. This is one of those games, and this is probably something that you could say applies to a lot of mobile games. The way these games are successful is you keep the player base engaged consistently over long periods of time. If you have a period in this game where you have a new banner drops, people are excited, they're testing out the new character is really strong, whatever, that lasts for about a week. And so if you have the character drop and then for the next 2 weeks straight, you don't really have any significant updates to the game that incentivize people to log in and play and try out new stuff. And, there's a Zenkai here, there's a unique equip there's a platinum equipment here, there's a free-to-play character here, there's a new type of PvE event that seems interesting. If you don't have something to at least incentivize people to log in and play, people will not log in and play. And the longer people go in games like this without logging in and playing, the harder it is to get them to log back in later, because you're not setting a routine for people to do in this game. If somebody hasn't logged into a game like this in 2 weeks or 2.5 weeks or 3 weeks, the chances of them never logging in again keep going up and up and up and up and up, essentially just until there's almost a 0% chance that they'll ever play the game again. So you really have to have some type of incentive for that player to log in. Otherwise, the player is going to leave forever. So when we take a look at what we've received in terms of content for the past few weeks here, and this is where the character list comes in. So again, like I said, let me actually pull up the calendar so it's easier to explain this. Okay, so here is when Legends Fest actually dropped. It was the 21st of November. So again, like I said, this drop of Legends Fest really covered this day of content, because this day of content, the Wednesday before Legends Fest started, basically had no content. It was the Bojack Awakened equipment was what we got for this week's worth of content. That was it. So all the content that, quote unquote, should have dropped here because that's when they dropped Legends Fest Part 1. So week 1 of content was here. Again, I don't really have a huge issue with week one of content. I talked about it already. only 1% sparking, the format not really changing, no really new innovative PvE events, none of that stuff. And I think, again, Janemba, unfortunately, even though I really like the way the Janemba was designed, I don't think Janemba was a smart pick for part 1 here. So Gogeta really was, Synchro Gauge Super Gogeta really was the hook for Legends Fest part 1 here. So that was week 1 of content. The first reset day of Legends Fest was here. So here's our second week of content for Legends Fest. Second week of content for Legends Fest ended up being a free-to-play Jiren, who I actually don't know where he is. Might be a little bit more down. I can just type his name in here. Jiren, I don't see him. Jiren, which definitely was a... Yeah, I'll call it a strange pick because, number one, we had already had a Jiren who released as a free-to-play character during the last major celebration, like 7th anniversary. He literally the same exact time this Jiren dropped as this Jiren. The next reset day after the part 1 characters dropped, we got this free-to-play Jiren for the 7th anniversary. And then literally the same exact thing happened for Legends Fest. And then number 2, this guy does not pertain whatsoever to the part 1 characters or the part 1 theme overall, which is the Fusion Reborn movie. So definitely a little bit strange we got this Jiren there. And then we got the platinum equipment for the red Namek Goku, the free-to-play one, which I thought was actually a really good platinum equipment because he made the character really good. And this is actually something similar to, I think, what we saw with Shallot during the 7th anniversary. And I've made this comment many times, but whenever you have a free-to-play character that is actually able to compete with the best units in the game, it probably helps the game more than anything else you can do because it gives players who don't have access to these characters, don't have the ability to spend money on the game to pull these characters, don't have the resources to pull for these characters, maybe they're new players. You log into the game, you can get Shallot, get his platinum equipment, and during the 7th anniversary, Shallot was very effective. Namek Goku. I mean, you could argue this guy is in the top 10 best characters in the entire game with his platinum equipment. That's really good. Everybody has access to this guy. So I think that's a really good thing, actually. So I don't really have particularly huge issues with the content we had for the 26th. Now we can head over to today, the third week of Legends Fest, December 3rd. Our only piece of content for December 3rd here is yet another platinum equipment for UI Sign Goku over here. Here is where we can start to, I think, heavily criticize how they're handling the off weeks of the celebration. So this is the second platinum equipment we're getting in a row, right? 2 weeks of platinum equipment in a row, which again, I don't really have any issues specifically with that. The problem is we can't just do that and expect that to be enough, or we can't expect that to be satisfactory to most players. We also need Zenkais. We also need LF character unique equipments. We need other things besides just platinum equipments to get people involved and get people incentivized to log into the game, right? The big issue with platinum equipments, if we just open up any okay, we'll take a look at we take a look at you, because these are the 3 most recent ones. UI Sign Goku unlocks at 7 stars, Super Vegito unlocks at 7 stars, and then Hit unlocks at 7 stars. So all these platinum equipments have these really, really powerful slot 4 effects that are locked behind the character being at 7 stars. So not only are these platinum equipments only going to be super effective on players who already own the Ultra characters, but you also need to have multiple copies of the Ultra characters for these platinum equipments to have oftentimes their most powerful effects on here. Now, for UI Goku in particular, I don't actually think this is the most powerful slot on this equipment, although this is definitely very powerful here. I think this is certainly where the bulk of his value is coming from on this equip. This is also everything on here is good, but you still aren't going to realize the full value of the equip unless you have the character at 7 stars. So Ultra Platinum equipments are pretty restrictive in which players they're rewarding for releasing. So if you don't have UI Sign Goku, or maybe you don't have him at 7 stars, you're really not even realizing all of the content dropping this week. So we also, again, I don't know why they started to do this, but this is actually another thing that they started doing during the 7th anniversary. They're just very, very sparsely releasing Zenkai characters. But we could even take a look at the 7th anniversary, and the 7th anniversary at this point already had an LF Zenkai drop with the Revival UI Goku. So at this point in the anniversaries run, like the 3rd week of the anniversary, we had already had the part 1 characters, which, keep in mind, the anniversary did give us one more 1% sparking than we got for Legends Fest. The anniversary gave us a LF character unique equipment for the Goku and Frieza. And the anniversary already did give us the free-to-play Jiren, so that's the same. And we had the LF Zenkai 4 Revival UI Sign Goku. So, oh yeah, and then also the Ultra Hit Platinum equipment. So the only real difference, I guess, between the 7th anniversary and Legends Fest throughout the first 3 weeks of both celebrations was anniversary gave us one more 1% sparking on the banners, and anniversary gave us one more LF unique equipment, and anniversary gave us another LF Zenkai. And then the only, I guess, positive thing you could spin on the Legends Fest side of things is we had a free character platinum equipment, which I think is really good for this character, the Namek Goku, and 2 more supporters. That's it. So clearly I would give the massive advantage so far to how the 7th anniversary part 1 played out over Legends Fest, which is definitely disappointing because we're 3 weeks into Legends Fest and we have 0 Zenkai Awakenings so far, which should not be the case ever. should never be the case. So I will actually say that I am a bit disappointed in how they've handled part 1 of Legends Fest so far. I would assume that most players are in the same boat as me. If you guys are not disappointed and you're actually enjoying things, that's not, this is not meant for me to say you shouldn't be enjoying things. That's just how I felt. That's just how I felt about part 1 so far. So I don't think this is, looking objectively at how they've handled this. This is not like on the bad side of Legends Fest part 1s. It's better than 2024. It's better than 2022. You can, compare it to 2023. I think it's kind of similar. So it's kind of in the middle of Legends Fest Part 1s that we've seen throughout the history of this game. But you would expect that as we get deeper into the lifespan of this game, they would start to one-up prior years every single year, right? So Legends Fest 2023, in theory, should be better than 2022. 2024, theoretically, should be better than 2023. 2025, theoretically, should be better than the prior year. So every single year, we should be expecting them to one-up the prior year celebration. That's just how it works. That definitely is not the case, because I would still say, without a shadow of a doubt, that 2021 has been the best part 1 4 years ago. So yeah, I don't know. I think a lot of it has to do with the off weeks. That really is where it feels like there's a lack of content. It feels like, I don't know, like I don't, again, it's hard for me to really criticize them on resource allocation because I don't have access to the information on, like, okay, how many devs do they have assigned to work on this? How much resources do they have to assign to this project, and like all these different metrics? We just don't know the answer. If it was up to me, like, and I'm trying to judge them on how they're doing this, like, how am I supposed to say, wow, they really dropped the ball by not giving us, another 1% sparking character, or they really dropped the ball by not giving us a Zenkai here? I think clearly when it comes down to it, if you were going to like ask the director of the game or something, would you have wanted to drop a Zenkai during the first week? Would you have wanted to give us one more 1% sparking character on the banners? I think obviously his answer would be yes. I would have liked to have given you more content. So there's got to be some reason why they aren't doing it, right? I mean, there's got to be something, like, I would imagine that it's just got to be some kind of bottleneck, resource bottleneck somewhere. Because there's no way they would intentionally want to hold back on content, right? They're giving us, again, the platinum equipment for Ultra UI Sign Goku today. Why would they not want to also give us an LF Zenkai for Blue Beast Gohan or Purple Revival Gohan. Like, why wouldn't they? Why wouldn't they want to do that? I don't know. Doesn't make any sense. So there's got to be some reason why they aren't doing it. But from a player standpoint, I am just conveying how I feel about this part 1 so far, in that the off weeks feel weak, and there were definitely a few issues with even just the part 1 drop date, with the banners, with things like that. So again, part 1, overall, I think I am a bit disappointed in how they've handled it. But, you know, comparing it to prior year Legends Fest, I would say it does probably fall somewhere in the middle. But the content has not necessarily been the greatest. If you guys agree, or if you disagree, let me know. And let me know specifically what parts of Legends Fest so far you feel underwhelmed by. Hope you guys enjoyed this one. And hopefully things start to pick up in part 2. I will see you in the next one.